So today we're going to finish this part of the painting, the pathway, and it's just this right there. Mine is kind of to here, so if you find that the one I'm doing is a bit short and yours is longer, it's the same technique. You just make it longer, that's all. So with this, what I'm going to do first is take white pencil crayon and just kind of, because I don't want to think about it when I'm painting it, I'm just going to do a little bit of a guideline here. Something like that. That will give me an idea. It goes kind of on a bending kind of line. All right, that's enough. That's good. I'm going to start from this part here, and from what I'm seeing, we're going to take two sizes and two kinds of brushes, round and same, round and flat, or this way. We're going to use it that way. And some for the small ones. The round are for the little dots. All right, let's start with this one here. It's a bright. The one I have is a bright. Small bright, not too big. Because if it's small, it will give me texture. It won't be too flat, the paint. All right. So the colors I have: burnt umber, burnt sienna, unbleached titanium or titanium buff, and white. So if you don't have titanium buff, just mix burnt umber and white and it will give you kind of this color here, which is fine. It's enough. It's a good color. All right, so I'm going to start with the part where the actual path is, this little center part, and then I'll move on to other parts. That will give me a good idea where to start. So I'm mixing unbleached titanium or titanium buff with a bit of white, and I'm going to come here. I'm going to dab. I think this is a bit too light. I'm going to darken it a bit. This is too light. I'm going to take a bit of burnt umber with unbleached titanium. So I don't like to start with dark. With light. It just, what happens when you start with light, a light color, the white takes over and it's too much. So, and you lose depth too. Even if it looks big now, that's okay, because whatever we're going to put on the sides will push the colors from the sides in and reshape the path. Yeah, this is better. Okay, so titanium buff and burnt umber, a little bit of burnt umber for the first layer. That's good. That's good. Sides are kind of less more of a, you can see the strokes, the lines right here. Let's put this out and I'll reshape it after. Okay. Now inside of the path in here, it's more dense. And I'm just using here just titanium buff for now. This is the center. I'm going to take a little bit of burnt umber and put it in the titanium buff. Center is looking a little bit too light. All right, that's better. And it's narrower when you go further away. It's not as wide. I'm adding a little bit more white at this point to the titanium buff and burnt umber. Just a tiny bit of white. That's too much. Let's take a bit more of the titanium buff. And yeah, that's better. So the road is not even, which makes the path uneven as well. You will see some parts are higher, some parts are lower. So your brush stroke will have to kind of change a bit. So once we get to this part, you'll see that it goes slightly on an angle. It looks funny now. Because it's just, that's the only thing you see. Looks like feather. All right. I changed into a round brush. And I'm going to take the same burnt umber, titanium buff. And let's give this part a little bit of a texture. That's the only way to get that texture going. Otherwise, if we use the bright or flat one that we were using, it's not gonna give us that this little kind of tiny little dots that I'm putting in here. And usually I build them up slowly. So, I mean, kind of sometimes it looks too dark when it dries, especially when it dries, but that's okay when the paint dries. But we'll build them. I usually build layers. Yeah, that's good. Looking good. Excellent. I'm going to change the value a bit from light to dark in certain areas so it's not all the same. Adding, meaning that I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber in certain areas, like a stronger burnt umber, darker. Especially if I find that it looks flat. Bring it into the lines that we put in here. Bring these burnt umber and titanium buff in here into this part. And it's okay if it doesn't look straight. It shouldn't. Getting there. So now see how this is kind of drying darker, which is great because then after what I want to do is I'm going to add a couple of little highlights here and there. But in overall, it is kind of muted. I'm going to do this and then I'll stop. I'll pause for a minute and then we'll continue after. It's going to look really nice once we start putting the burnt sienna in. All right, now let it dry, and then we'll come back to it.
She was so proud to say my mom made the kibbeh.
Kibbeh. Oh, nice.
And they were delicious.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
Good, good. So now I'm mixing burnt umber and burnt sienna. I'm going to start with this kind of darker burnt sienna, more earthy, with a bit of burnt umber in it, so I can put lighter color on top after. And I'm going to start with in the back, just a couple, not much in the back because it's really dark. Just kind of a couple here and there. Just give it some depth, and with the kind of the tip of my brush. So don't put too much. Now here, I can kind of, it's like a dry brush. Go in, or like let's say, I would say probably instead of dry brush, I should say glaze. This is more like a glaze. Not too heavy, not too dark. I'm mixing a little bit of burnt umber in my burnt sienna, in the burnt sienna I'm using. Okay. So I'm making my color a little bit more transparent here with adding a bit water. And again, I'm using the same brush. So now I'm going to go in with the burnt sienna and the small brush and create put some burnt sienna in between some of the lines, off-white lines that I did before for the path, just to show some of this reddish color in between there. Again, my brush is very it's thin, round, so it's giving me the right. And it's okay, because if I go too much, if I put too much, that's okay. I can always go back and add some off-white and fix the color. And it's actually nicer when you do that, when you go back and forth and adjust the detail. I'm going to take a bit of white at this point, add it to my burnt sienna, make it more like a pink color, and come here, and with this pink, put a little bit of that color and just kind of soften some of the lines in here. In the center, you can see, in the center of the path, you can see in the reference, there's a hint of that burnt sienna in there, the red, earthy red. It's nice. It's just kind of makes it look like it's not disconnected from the rest of the painting. Okay, let's go back in here with some of the titanium buff, a little bit of burnt umber, adjust some of these lines. Some of them are a bit harsh, the burnt sienna that I put before, and put some highlights, little dots of lighter. I kind of lost a bit of the path movement. I'm going to add a little bit of the burnt sienna in here, but it's the pink burnt sienna in the mixture of titanium buff and burnt umber. Yeah, that's good. I know in the reference, the side in here, this part is more pronounced and highlighted than the center of the path. But I kind of like to center more, like to highlight this center more than the side. I don't know why, it just kind of, because it's smaller, narrower, and it just leads the eye more to this part. There. I like it better this way. Right, now I'm going to take burnt sienna. Let's put a tiny bit of white in it. And try to highlight here, this part. Now, if it doesn't look red enough, and your burnt sienna is not that red, and it's more on the brown, add a tiny bit of red in it, you know, like cadmium red light, tiny bit in your burnt sienna. White, titanium buff, a little bit of white with titanium buff. Titanium buff I have has a tiny bit of pink in it, which is great. And I'm just going to come here, and I'll tell you why I'm doing this in a minute. Okay, highlight it a little bit more with white. I'm going to highlight this part with using dots in here. Okay, let's go back to the pink burnt sienna. I'm adding titanium buff to burnt sienna at this point. And I'm going to come here and go in between, because just a little bit. It's like a glaze. And you see more of this part that is kind of reddish part coming into the path when you get closer here. This part, not this part. adding a little bit of white to my brown that I have here, just because I want to highlight, putting a couple of lighter brownish dots in here. Okay. Now, the reason I highlighted this part a little bit more right here, because we need to do the same down here. We need to put some kind of a path, a hint of a path down there, but without connecting this part right there with this part. So if I highlight here, it means I'm pushing it forward up so I can see it more. And the one down here, I'll just keep it darker. And if by the time I put the color in here and it looks too light, then I can glaze it and push it back. But I'll try not to. And it doesn't have to look like it doesn't have to look perfect. And now let's take a little bit of the red. It's a red, I'm sure it's burnt sienna mixed with, let's put titanium buff in it so it's not too light, and make it into a glaze, not too thick. And let's put some here. I'm going to take burnt umber, add the burnt umber in here, and do this. And it's not because I want to follow what's in there in the reference. It's just because I want to push it back in. So if you darken it, it goes in instead of it doesn't come forward. And add a bit of this mixture I have here. I think it was titanium buff with a bit of burnt umber and a tiny bit of burnt sienna. And I'm going to give this part a hint of path down there. All right, I don't want to put more than that. It's enough. I just didn't want to keep this part flat. Okay, it's a really small part, so no need to work on it too much. Right, so let's see, what do we need here? This is too brown in here, so I am going to add a tiny bit of highlight. Let's take Instead of taking orange, I'm going to use cadmium red light with burnt sienna. I know it's very, very strong, but if it's mixed with burnt sienna, it will be fine. Okay, that's a good color. All right, let's try it. If we don't like it, we can always glaze it. Push it back. Oh, that's a good color. Yeah, it's good. Okay. All right. Just gives this part a bit of a punch. Oh, that's too much. I'm adding titanium buff to tone it down a bit. Okay, now this part is too dark, too sharp, so I'm going to soften a bit with a little bit of titanium buff and burnt umber, or titanium buff and light burnt sienna. Okay, that's good. It's better. I'm just glazing part of this path here and there so it doesn't look like it's very clean and all the lines are perfect. So remove a bit of these connection and make it more like a proper path. Now that I have the red in here with burnt sienna, I'm going to do the same with, sorry, just going to do that. I'm going to do the same. Just add a couple of this strong red up here with the leaves. also the same with this part. So you have a nice distribution of reds around the painting, especially because most of the colors in here are very browns and grays, and so this red will kind of give it a nice feel. And you know, go for it. Go for the red. If you don't, it's okay. I mean, if it looks very red, that's okay. Those leaves. We need that in here. We need this beautiful warm colors. Let's put some here, just a couple, not much, because all of these little kind of reds and warm colors punch it up with the reds in here. They lead the eye around the painting. And it connects the painting, parts of the painting together. All right, one more thing I want to put in there, maybe. All right, let's take a bit of burnt umber. And I'm going to put burnt umber here. Just because the wall, this is a wall here, right there. It's kind of blending with the path. So I'm just going to put a bit of burnt umber in there to disconnect the wall from the path. I think we're done. We're good. We don't need more than that. This project is done. We're going to start a new project after that. And I think we're okay with the car, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
I am anyway.
Okay, good. It's a fun one to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, project is done. We're moving on to a new project next week. Yeah, so it was fun working on this project.